Okay.
Thank you, darling.
In the name of God, Jesus, the good spirits, Almighty Lord and Supreme Creator of the universe, we are very humble, grateful, and thankful for the lesson we're about to receive. To our guardian angels, spirits, protectors, we appreciate your infinite wisdom. We will continue with our prayers and love and kindness to all those that need us, the hospitals, those that left us behind. We pray for their families and their loved ones. May the peace of the Lord be with all of us. God bless all of us.
God bless us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we are in question 975.
Nice. Yes. Right.
And Zoraida, can you read for us?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, let me just put here. Sorry, I forgot to share screen. Let me put here on the screen. Okay, can you all see that? Let me put it bigger.
Yes.
Okay, 975. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Remember to mute your phones, your audio.
Okay, when we're ready, Jasada, you tell me.
Okay, I can mute something. Okay.
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 Okie dokie, we'll start. 975. Do inferior spirits understand the happiness of the virtuous? Yes, and that happiness is a source of torment for them. They understand that their own deeds deprive them of it. It also leads them to seek a new physical existence to shorten the duration of that torment when death frees them from matter. If good use is made of this existence, it is on this basis that they choose the appropriate trials to atone for their faults. It must be remembered that spirits suffer for all the wrongdoing they have done, or which they have been the voluntary cause, all the good that they may have done and did not do, and all the evil that has resulted from failing to do the good they might have done. When erring, it is as though a spirit emerges from a fog and sees the obstacles that stand between it and the ultimate happiness. Therefore, it suffers more because it understands the full extent of its culpability. There are no more illusions for it. It sees things as they really are. When erring, a spirit sees all its past lives at a glance and foresees the future promised to them. It understands what it still needs to do to reach that future. It is like a traveler who, having reached the top of a hill, sees both the road it traveled and what it still has to travel to reach the end of the journey.
So very much like here on earth, that we can see, the happiness and unhappiness of others. Of course, in the spiritual realm, it happens the same way. And it's always hard. It's always going to be hard for us, especially knowing that we could have done something to have a better outcome in terms of, future life in the spiritual realm, and we haven't done that. Of course, we also very much like here, when we do something bad, we will be regretting, our behavior, the things that we did. And this is the reason why we wind up asking to return, to have a new opportunity in a new incarnation, and conscious that we have to come and endure whatever it is necessary for us to make amends, for us to grow, for us to be able to evolve. Remember that we mentioned that last week, that the word errant means in between lives. So we are talking about when we leave the physical body and we are in the spiritual sphere, but is still subject to other reincarnations. So this is what we call it. This is the terminology that Allan Kardec found to explain this situation of a spirit that is still subject to more incarnations. So, and of course, it's going to be painful for us when we see that due to our own doing, we prevented ourselves to be happier. And the only way out is actually enduring new incarnations and doing what we have to do in order to achieve a better situation. Any questions, comments?
Susana, when we say the errant state, when we're in the spirit world, they show us this. Remember, we saw something. One of the films that you showed us, they show you a screen of what is more or less. I don't want to go, so I want to see everything, but a screen that shows you your past lives and the one that you had just left. Mm-hmm. And from there, you are. They give you all the necessities of what you need and what you've done before and how you're going to go back. Is it all like that? This whole scene of giving us who we really are and what we didn't do and what we should have done, and when we come back, what the opportunity and the learning that they teach you at that time also when you're there. Mm-hmm. I am assuming. Is that more or less?
Yes, and remember that when we are at the stage of evolvement that we are, most probably we participated 100% in the decisions about our life, our reincarnation. Only when we are at the very initial stages of becoming an individualized spirit. I mean, in the hominid phase is when the spirits will be guiding us. But as soon as we start advancing, having more understanding, we are going to participate. So that is sometimes what it is hard for us to accept and understand, that our perspective completely changes from when we are in the spiritual realm versus the physical one. Because when we are there, we see clearly, like, I see that spirit is so happy. I wanted to be happy like that spirit. And they say, you can, and you will. It only depends on you. It only depends on, what you're going to do to achieve that. So it's no privilege. No one reached this stage based on privilege, on family, on power, nothing.
No.
It's purely your own acquisition. So next question to Dan will be, what can I do to do that? To progress, to advance, and to, to leave behind this miserable state that I am in. And they say, well, you can. The natural course is for you to take a new life, to go in a new reincarnation. And in this new reincarnation, in order to fulfill, to comply with, and to learn what you need to learn in order to reach this kind of state, you could do this, or that. And then it's our choice. Our choice to say, oh no, I think this is going to be just too much. Can I go slower surely, but lower. And then they will say, okay, but then even when we come here, not even this lower that we asked for, sometimes we decide to do. And so we prolong our, our state of inferiority due to becoming that much distracted with things that are not that much important. So yeah, I mean, it's and again, like I always say, it was so much easier when we could blame God, you know, the divine providence for the injustice that I see in the world. I mean, now I do believe that sometimes we don't have more spiritists because of that. Because I cannot accept that it's my own fault. I want, so.
The pride has a lot to do with it.
You can complain like a babe, throw yourself at the floor, and a tantrum, do whatever, but it's still, the mother is always right.
That's right.
God is always right. And at the end of the day, we will have to comply. How much more suffering we are going to have, it depends on us, entirely upon us.
Pretty very simple. Thank you, Josara. Okay. So we go to no questions, 976.
I have a question. Hi, this is Rick.
Okay.
Hi, Rick.
My question is the following. Do spirits who have done wrong things and they are, let's say, in a lower planet, do they travel from lower to lower planet, or do they stay in one place where they have to, for lack of a better word, atone for the wrongdoings and then find the light to actually ask to come back to be reincarnated again?
So you are talking in terms of, the lower plane and lower zone in the spiritual world, right?
Yes, yes.
Well, there are very much like here, there are lower and lower, right? So normally, from what we even can capture from the books from Andrea Lewis, there are spirits that are in very difficult places on the what we will call lower zones, that are removed to house of assistance, to places still in the spiritual world that are still considered lower zones, but more advanced. So take, for instance, Nosso Lar. Nosso Lar to us already seemed to be, a paradise. The majority of spiritists want to go to Nosso Lar to when they die, to the spiritual colony that is called Nosso Lar, our home. Okay.
Yes.
But the thing is, this most of the spiritual colony, our home, Nosso Lar, are actually located in the lower zones. So the lower zone is very much like, a neighborhood that we may have that is still, we will say, well, it's not that wonderful neighborhood, but there are areas that are much worse than others. Okay. So it's more, this is basically the information that we have. So there are different categories of lower zones, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, so go to 976, please, sir.
Okay.
There's one question of Orlando in the
let me see the chat because I don't leave the chat open.
They say, are people wasting their time reading books on how to be happy when they have to go through trials? Is that a conflict?
Well, I mean, this is very much the the thought of the church during the early ages of humankind and the medieval times. You know, they wanted to prevent people to read so that they would not be enlightened. So reading, and of course we are talking about here reading that are good reading, even if it's not a spiritist, okay? If it's historical, science, we are talking about good reading. Or spiritual is always going to be important for us, and is going to be always the backbone of society, because without learning, especially analyzing our past, not to repeat our past, we are going to be moving forward. So I don't see any kind of conflicts. On the contrary, enlightenment, that's why they even call the age of enlightenment, where we start progressing. Okay, we progressed much more on the material aspect of life, but it comes a point that the soul longs for more. When you have, we don't have answers to the fundamental problems or questions of life. And this we can gather only through spiritual discovery. And of course, they are going to be, thank God, in written form as well, because us, as we know, have a very short expiration date, but the books don't. Okay, let's go to 976.
Okay. Is seeing suffering spirits a cause of distress for the good ones? If so, what becomes of the happiness of the latter, as that happiness has been impaired? Good spirits are not distressed by the suffering of those who are at lower point than themselves, because they know that it will one day end. They lend a helping hand to assist those who suffer to become better. This is their occupation, and a joy for them when they succeed. This is understandable for spirits who are strangers and who take no special interest in them. However, does observing their pain and suffering disturb the happiness of spirits who have loved them on earth? If spirits do not see your suffering, it is because they separated from you after death. While religion preaches that the souls of the departed continue to see you, but they see you from another point of view. They know that this suffering helps you advance if you hear it with resignation, and they are more pained by the lack of resilience that holds you back than by what they know is temporarily suffering.
So this last phrase here is the key phrase for this this question, the answer, you know, because the spirits, very much like here, when we have to go through a surgery, or we have to take a bitter medicine in order to improve ourselves, no one is going to resist that if they know that this is ultimately for their own good. So the spirits that are in a better condition than we are, they understand, even because they have gone through that themselves, that situations that we qualify as being suffering, because, you know, they require our commitment, our responsibility, our dedication, and sometimes we don't want to do that. They know that this kind of suffering is important for us for our growth. It's very much like the children that they say, I don't want to go to school. I wanted to stay home and play video game and eat ice cream. Like, you know, I always give this example. So it's very much like us. To them, to the children, going to school is suffering. But we as adults, do we qualify going to school to learn, to enlighten yourself as being suffering? It is not. So the good spirits, they know that it's just us that qualify that, because we would like to lead a life of irresponsibility. But what really makes them suffer is not the suffering so much that we are going through according to our denomination, but to see that we are voluntarily looking for situations that will provoke the delay on our evolvement. So when they see us going through the wrong ways that will actually bring about suffering to us, this is when they kind of suffer, worries, frustrate, feel disappointed, and knowing that later on, for all the irresponsible laughs that we are, or joy that we are having now, there will be a difficult path ahead. So this is why, you know, like, you know, when they say here, you are in the spiritual realm and you see your children grown up already, leading a bad life. More than the suffering that they are going through, the spirit will feel for the bad decisions that we are taking.
And I think, Jussara, going this direction that you just mentioned, if you could have this perception in a way to use in our lives today as incarnated, would be like having such a better way to cope with pain. Yeah? I think about, like, for example, when you go through a lot of tribulations and diseases or financial situations as well, most of us want to just mitigate the pain. We want to try to get away from the pain. But if you have this understanding, there is a spiritual component lesson behind that, wouldn't it be much nicer to meditate on that as well? Yeah, because when you arrive in the spiritual realm, according to what the spirits answer Kardec, this is going to be our first understanding. What was the lesson, spiritually speaking, from that pain or that suffering that I might be avoided or didn't want to pay attention? Yeah. I think if you try to focus on this, why we're here right now, of course, let's mitigate the pain. Of course, let's try to avoid as much as you can suffering. But at the same time, try to see what is there behind as a father or mother that you could teach that child or that friend or coworker, yeah? Mm-hmm. Spiritually speaking.
There is another comment of from Orlando in the chat.
Let me see, open chat.
The question is, don't you need the physical body to experience happiness? I don't comprehend happiness in the spiritual world when life is mental.
Yeah, we don't comprehend a lot of things, Orlando. And happiness, I think we really don't comprehend, not even in the physical world, because most of the times what we qualify as being happiness are just, you know, trinkets, you know, nothing that really matters. Again, for a child, happiness can be get a new toy. For us, can be get a new car. And none of that actually are actually important and really happiness. So, of course, living in a material world is very hard for us to understand the satisfaction in the life of the spirit. But life in the spirit world, like I always say, is not necessarily only mental. And remember that all the happiness that you feel in the body is more of the mind than actually of the body. I feel happy because I got a new job. It's not my body that got the new job. I feel happy because I found the love of my life. It's not the body that loves. I feel happy because I have nice children. It's not the body of the children that I love, but what they are and they represent. So we have to change our perspective again, even when we are talking about the physical world. Okay.
Okay.
So let's go to 977.
Okay. If spirits are unable to hide their thoughts or all the acts of their lives from each other, does it mean that those who have wronged others are always in the presence of their victims? Common sense tells you that it cannot be otherwise. Is the disclosure of all our reprehensible acts and the perpetual presence of those who have been our victims an atonement for the guilty? Yes, it is more substantial than you think. It only lasts until they make amends for wrongdoing, either as a spirit or as a person in new physical lives. When we are in the spirit world, our entire path is revealed, and the good or bad that we did is known. Those who have done evil, who try to avoid their victims, do so in vain. They cannot escape their presence, and it is an atonement and a source of remorse until they atone for the wrongs they have done. Conversely, kindness and goodwill surrounds the spirit of an upright person. Even on earth, there is no greater torment for a bad person than the presence of his or her victims, whom they try to avoid at all costs. What happens when the illusions of passion dissipate and they understand the wrongs they have done? When they see their secret actions brought to light and the hypocrisy unmasked, when they realize that they cannot hide from those that they have wronged, while the soul of the wicked is prey to shame, regret, and remorse, the soul of the virtuous enjoys perfect peace.
We have an example like that in the book Nosso Lar, Our Home, Astral City, as they call it as well. When André Luiz meet a woman that he caused harm during his life on matter, and he describes how bad he feels in spite of the woman having no hard feelings for him and have already forgiven him in a way. So again, when we are living the life of spirit, that is the real one, there is nothing we can hide. So it's that's why, you know, it can be very difficult for us when we have to face situations in relation to our behaviors. And it's always going to be there in our mind. And like I said, remember last week we mentioned the criminal always returns to the scene of the crime. In a way, that is the reason why we also ask for reincarnation, because we understand that we have to return and to make amends, to feel good in relation to our conscience, to our behaviors. So that's the reason why we do it. So, but we are talking about, you know, the emotions, the situations that we feel here in the afterlife. So the previous question, yes, we will suffer for having wasted our precious time. Yes, we will suffer by seeing others that we have harmed.
Mamãe não consegue jogar peixinho agora, depois eu consigo.
Uh,
Pode.
the mic was open. We can hear you.
Fernanda, put your mic on mute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It wasn't open. I don't know what I did. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So those kind of things actually for the spirit are very painful. And I mean, it's not like here that we can try to justify our actions with bias, excuses. There, you know, it will be, it is what it is. There is no way we can hide. And this is really difficult for the life of the spirit. We will not, because many times we deceive ourselves. We find excuses like, you know, oh, but I only did that because that person is unbearable. But does it really justify certain actions just because the person is unbearable according to our standards?
The question 977 for me was revolutionary when I read. Not even the answer from the spirits, what Kardec said. When he say, I have a different version, but let me see if I can make bigger here. I can see yours. Because my vision 977, just the first sentence. If I can see. Yeah. If spirits are unable to hide their thoughts or all the acts of their lives from each other. So Kardec is saying that we cannot hide our thoughts from one another. And when he says spirits, it doesn't matter if you're incarnate or discarnate, yeah? And it doesn't have anything to do with mediumship as well. So I said to myself, that was like when many years ago when I started, I said, oh, wow. So doesn't matter what I say, doesn't matter what I do. By the end of the day, what I'm thinking, it's already imprinted in the universe and everybody's gonna know. What do I need to do to clean it up the mess, in a sense, yeah? Because by the end of the day, like we can say whatever we want, you can write whatever we want, we're gonna arrive in the spiritual realm and you're gonna see very transparent each other. Isn't better to start to work now on that? This for me was revolutionary regarding like to be more transparent for myself, yeah?
And it's great that you mentioned Adilson, because yeah, you're absolutely right. We are talking about, you know, life on matter as well. You know, we are spirits. It doesn't matter whether we have a physical body here or there. I mean, our thoughts, our actions cannot be hidden in the spiritual level. And like we know, every night when we sleep or day, whatever, and you leave your physical body, you're living the life of the spirit, and you cannot hide it from you, and you can even less hide it from others. So it's all there, and it's really difficult. And I think you are right. I mean, this is actually one of the things that should motivate us to start acting differently. You are all too quiet today. I know. At some point, I'm thinking, I don't know if I wanted to return to the spiritual world, right? And having to deal with all that, but there is no way out.
No way out.
Yeah. No way out. Okay, let's go to 978 then.
978. Okay. Does the memory of the faults the soul committed when imperfect disturb its happiness even after it reaches purity? No, because it has redeemed its faults and successfully passed through the trials it had endured for that purpose.
Okay, let's stop here. It's again, let's make an analogy with our physical matter. If I owe you money, Zoraida, I'm not going to feel bad until I'm able to pay my debt with you. Once, so, you know, how am I going to pay her? How am I going to get the money? Oh, you know, everything that I have to endure in order to return to you, you know, the money that you lent me. In there, it's the same thing. Once I'm, you know, I'm rid of my debts, there is no reason for me to revisit that. And from this perspective, I only get rid of my debts when I actually do something positive to counterbalance the negative that I did. So in this way, I'm only going to look behind like, you know, a little child that will say, look how silly I was when, you know, I think that I deceived my parents doing this or that, and they knew quite quite well what I was doing, you know. And so it is like this. There and this I remember, I don't remember exactly when, but the Spirit Emmanuel says, you know, that this is one of the reasons that revisiting our previous incarnations will not necessarily bring us any good. Because what is the point of looking at a stage of your life that you were an infant, right? You acted like an infant and you had the responsibility of an infant. I mean, I'm not going to pay attention to that. Okay.
Dr. Alberto Almeida, he's a psychologist or psychiatrist?
Psychologist.
Psychologist. So a long time ago, he gave a lecture. He said the best way for us to know if you're really okay with like something that we did in the past, pay attention to the emotion that that memory brings to us. Mm-hmm. So it's not about to remember, not because you're going to remember everything if you need to for whatever reason, yeah. But if the emotion is an emotion of peace, of joy, of grace, whatever it is, it means that you pass through it. But if it provokes any type of pain or imbalance, it's something that we still need to work on it. Mm-hmm. So I elevated the spirit that went through all these past wrongdoings, but he worked on himself. His emotion is in peace with himself. He's going to look at something, he's going to look at him as a child. As Jussara said, if I was a child, I act as a child. But it's past already. Now as an adult, I don't do that anymore. So he doesn't feel guilt or he doesn't feel any judgment for the past. I'm gonna mute. Ambulance.
Yeah.
We don't want to hear that.
Yeah, okay. A question for Orlando here. I think I'll suffer more during a life review, learning the good I did not do, versus that which I did wrong, not doing all the good we could have done. It is a heavy burden to carry. The only thing that I can tell you, Orlando, to appease your heart is that you will not be alone in this boat.
That's Vivian. That's Vivian, Jussara.
Huh?
That is Vivian. The message.
Oh, Vivian. Oh, I thought it was Orlando. Okay. Well, okay, Vivian. The only thing that I can tell you is that you're not going to be alone in this boat. Okay. We all are going to feel the same way. I mean, we are just start learning about this kind of responsibility, this kind of, you know, of decisions we have to take. And I think for all of us, we will actually feel frustrated about the good we did not do and we had the opportunity of doing. And I think the majority of us will have to deal with that. So I guess it's part of our growing process as well, spiritually speaking. And each time more, we will be learning and avoiding doing that over and over again. So don't worry that much about it. Just keep doing the good thing and go march forward. Because if we delay ourselves, if we stay too much thinking about, oh my God, or I could have done this or this and that. I mean, it's in the past. We're not going to change, but you can change, like Chico Xavier said, you can change the today for the future as well. So I think the best we can do at this point is try to be more mindful of our actions, of the opportunities we have to grow, and the opportunities we have to help, and with that actually grow as well. What we did or did not do in the past, we cannot, it's not going to matter anymore, only for the purpose of remembering the bad sensation that it brought to us, because when we do bad, it always brings us bad sensation, emotions, and so try not to repeat it. Okay.
I had the other day I had in mind some things, thoughts like that the other day, but I kind of moved forward. When I was a youngster, a mother with 4 children, this sometimes haunts me. Sometimes the smoking. I used to smoke cigarettes, and it wasn't a good example for 4 children growing up. But at that time, cigarettes were not told and said to humanity that, you know, it's harmful and it could kill you. So what did I know? Young, foolish, and naive. And now I see that I see my children still doing bad habits of this smoking, and sometimes I go back and I think, I says, oh, if I shouldn't have done that. I gave a bad example. But just like you had just explained, you know, we can't go back. What I do now is I surely stopped. A radical change from one day to the next, I stopped. But I always sometimes go back and says, if I only shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have done that, gave a bad example. But just like they teach us now, we're taught in Spiritism, you can't go back. It's done, and just look forward to do all that you can to be a good example. So I'm glad that this is something that teaches us, go forward, don't go back. And the past is in the past. You can't undo the past, but you could do the now and the future. So it gives me a lot of hope and inspiration to move on and stop this foolishness of thinking when I was young and naive, there's nothing I can do. But I'm so glad that this is explained so clearly for us.
But you see, Soraya, this is also our way of blaming us from each and everything. Because I'm sure that besides smoking, you gave a lot of good examples.
Oh, yeah.
I know you have been doing at least for the past 20 years, and they didn't follow those examples.
Yeah.
Which means that they follow the examples that are convenient to them, and that actually you have nothing to do with the process. Because I know that for at least the past 20 years, you have been trying to teach them, examples of spirituality, and it's not working that much. So, I mean, I think it's good for us to revisit and thinking about ourselves, thinking about the behaviors as lessons learned, so that we cannot get involved with this sort of behaviors again. But in terms of blaming ourselves, even when we are talking about children, for the examples that we gave, it's I don't think it's productive, because I remember me having some conversations with my son saying, why do you children or teenagers have to follow the examples of the bad ones and not the examples of the good ones? Because there is always there, the choice is always there. And we will choose according to our own selves. So I don't think you should blame yourself that much.
No.
Even because, like you said, at that point we were completely ignorant in relation to the harm that, maybe not completely, but very much ignorant about
Yeah.
the harm of certain things. Like today, for instance, when I have the chance to go to the beach and stroll along the beach, and I see they have the umbrellas open, and all the clothes and the purses and the flip-flops are under the umbrella, and people are there toasting themselves in the sun, when we know about the harms of the sun in terms of skin cancer. So you see, you choose what is more important to you. Oh, I want to look like,
I want to have a tan.
a healthy, tanned person. Okay, but what are you trading for that?
Oh my goodness.
Right? So, I mean, so I would say don't blame yourself too much in relation to that, because I'm sure you gave an example of, a dedicated mother, and a righteous person, and not necessarily they are following that. Okay.
Of course. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susanna.
And
Thank you
also,
so much.
I think, Soraya and Josiah, we forget about the free will, right? I mean, they also learn it's bad, and they decided to smoke or not. They are acting on their free will, so don't minimize that. They also have their own responsibilities.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Of course, we are not trying to dismiss here the influence we may have upon others, especially parents, right? But ultimately, and I remember that I used to say this all the time, and my son was an excellent child, a well-behaved child. Every place we went, everyone would come and compliment us. And I always said, remember, that is 50-50. Because when you start doing bad things as well, don't blame
it comes to you.
Okay? I mean, 50%, of course, is what they learn from us. But 50% is their own inclination.
Yeah.
And I mean, and this is where, what Andrea said here, is their free will, their inclination, and we cannot do anything about it. So
that's true. Beautiful, yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Maybe we have time to read just one more.
One more. Oh, yes. Okay. 979. Do the trials a soul must experience in the future to complete its purification cause a painful apprehension that hampers its current happiness? Yes, for a soul that is still tainted by imperfection. It can only enjoy perfect happiness when it has become quite pure. For souls that have reached a certain degree of progress, the thought of the trials they still have to experience causes no pain whatsoever. When the soul arrives at a certain degree of purification, it obtains a taste of happiness. A feeling of sweet satisfaction overwhelms it and is happy in all that it sees and all that surrounds it. As the veil shrouding the mysteries of creation is partially raised, the soul begins to perceive divine perfection in its entire splendor.
The more we grow, the more we understand about, the rules, the things that we have to go through. The more we are going to be assuming the responsibility of what we have to do. Like, for instance, now, from in the current stage of humanity we are, we know that we have to work in order to provide for our sustainability. Not necessarily I'm happy about my job, I'm happy about, everything that happens there, but I understand that this is a way of reaching out peace of mind, a tranquility that I will need in order to lead, to have a comfortable life, right? So in terms of this spiritual progress, we also will reach a stage where we will see, well, this incarnation is not going to be an easy one. However, I know that is my passport to much better things. So I'll just go and do whatever I have to do in order to build up, you know, this spiritual growth. And of course, when we are more evolved, we will not even care about that because we know that we are serving, that we are in a path of even participating on the work of the creation, helping our brothers and sisters that have been delayed in situations where they cannot still choose well for themselves. So again, is the more we understand, the more we start changing our perspective, qualifying certain things as being the reason for our unhappiness when they are actually the reason for our happiness.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing. Okay, I would like you to comment, to question. So good to see you, Adam. It's been a while. I missed you. Are you there in Africa or no? No, okay. Oh, because you have a nice landscape around you. Okay.
By the river in the east side in Manhattan.
Okay. Yeah, but it looks nice. Before we started, Orlando asked a question about, you know, the untie of the spirit at the time of death. And we normally say that unless you are going through a newness process or, you know, a natural process of dying because you're, you know, too old, your body's shutting down, most of the time it will take a little longer for the spirit to detach from matter. And of course, in cases of sudden death, that can be caused by accidents or by a suicide. This is not something that we are going to see because the vital fluid was all there. And so the detachment of the spirit will take at least 72 hours. That is the time that physically we detach from the body, not necessarily spiritually speaking. So don't think that in any case of death, we will immediately see the release, the beautiful release, like we see now in the movies or cartoons of the spirit waking up, oh, like, you know, fresh as a daisy. Like our friend Tom Cressley mentions, Gilson, he likes this expression, fresh as a daisy. No, we're not going to wake up in the spiritual world fresh as a daisy after 30 seconds that I passed. So, but, and especially when the death didn't come from natural causes, and natural causes we mean as well a process of illness, not necessarily only old age. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to send the good vibrations to our sister Raquel. She's here with us. She has 4 babies and she's going to have the 5th one in 7 days, June 1st.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
God bless.
Yeah, I saw that
bless
you were here and was very, very happy to see you here.
Yeah, she had some minutes break to be in the study.
Yeah. Wow.
God bless you all. Thank you.
God bless. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
So it's time for us to start our preparation to end our meeting. It's almost
Okay.
Orlando asked something.
Yeah, I saw it, but we will have to go back to that next week, okay, Orlando? We don't have time for this anymore. And we mentioned this question last week when you asked it again. Compassion is always there. This is the trademark of God.
Yes.
Love for all beings.
Yes, just remind everyone, we have a class on Thursday at noon, Thursday at 6:30. Then we have Saturday lecture at 11. And on Sundays, we have our classes at 11 o'clock, okay? You are all invited to be with us, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, but this Saturday, the next 2 Saturdays, we will not have the 11 because this Saturday we'll have the General Assembly, and the following Saturday and Sunday we'll have our symposium, and I hope you all will be attending the symposium, okay? It's going to be, that's why we split it in 2 days so that people don't have to be, you know, the whole day in front of the computer. So it's going to be Saturday afternoon and Sunday morning. And we have prepared very special talks and other dynamics that is going to be, you know, to make it really interesting considering that we are doing a virtual symposium, okay?
Okay, good. Thank you, USADA. Okay, we'll start with our prayer.
Yes, please.
Heavenly Father, our spiritual guides, our guardian angels, with our hearts full of gratitude, how grateful we are as we continue our study meetings with the help of the new technology, guiding us as always, assisting us with teachers and mentors that are guiding our lives, helping us and allowing us to understand who we are through Spiritism. With our hearts full of gratitude, dear Lord, we thank you. And we ask, dear Father, for the assistance of all who are now going through pain and sorrows, but always remembering that God knows what we need. And so we pray for them, those in hospitals, the forerunners that are there every day, helping those that are in pain and alone at times. We ask, dear Father, that you help and assist them. As we understand, as we study this chapter of joys and sorrows, to remember that what Christ said, happiness is not of this world. But we're here to evolve and to do good as much as we can, helping through humanity as much as we can through prayers and faith in our hearts that God is good and perfect. May we continue throughout the week with prayers, sending out our love to all that are in need. With our hearts full of gratitude, we thank you, dear Lord. And we ask permission to close this meeting today. So be it.